What is up, you guys? I'm Charmx. Today I'm going to be reacting to Horror Show Presents The Enigma of the Amigara Fault. I don't know. I don't know how you say it. Amigara Fault, maybe? I think that's how you say it. Now, this is by Horror Show Comics, and this was actually recommended to me by Chris Animac. That's right, Chris Animac, the one that does Try to Laugh challenges. So yeah, I'm going to be reacting to this. Supposedly, it's going to be really scary, so if you guys like scary stuff, buckle in, I guess. But without any further ado, the original link's in the description. If you guys like this, make sure you give it a thumbs up. But without any further ado, the original link's in the description. Make sure you guys go subscribe to Horror Show Comics. Let's begin. I'm not really sure what I'm getting into here, though. Like, I know it's scary, but other than that, I don't know. Okay, it's a bit creepy. You can only dance around destiny for so long before fate pulls you in. I like that.
Do you know the one thing that distinguishes the difference between destiny and fate? My friends, today we're going to venture into a common horror that is overlooked. Something that may have us dwell upon a new fear when confronting the unknown. Of course, we all know that we can never truly see what awaits for us when stepping into the unknown future.
That's why I don't leave the house, because I have too much fear of what's outside.
But as we live out our daily lives, whether it's fruitful, meaningless, monotonous, or whatever, is it not true that every now and then you've entertained yourself with the idea of having control over your own future? That you tell yourself how you're destined to be something special, to push yourself through the miserable days just so you can finally achieve that blissful dream. The kind of dreams that will make you sleep better at night. Have you go out into the world, defining your own life, becoming the author of your own story. But what if, one day, all that would suddenly change? That without any warning, any preparations, your destiny is intercepted by an unexpected force, and suddenly you're thrown into a story that is out of your control.
So far, I'm liking this. I like the music in the background. I like that. We haven't even really got that far into it. I'm just, enjoying the atmosphere of it, if that makes sense.
That, my friends, is what we would call fate.
The Twilight Zone.
True horror within today's story.
Reminds me of the Twilight Zone.
Owaki, a young man who may have had a unique story of his own, or may have found himself chasing no dreams. Regardless, his story had somehow found itself centering upon an unexpected event. You see, not long ago, Japan had suffered a great earthquake that had leveled several towns and villages.
Oh, isn't this back in like 2011 or something?
Following the disaster was a large fault that was discovered on the north slope of the Amigara mountain. It was all over the news. They were calling it the eighth wonder of the world. Owaki
Okay, no, it was not. I guess, this is fiction, I guess, right?
didn't know why, but when he'd seen the fault on television, he had the sudden need to be there, to see this remarkable discovery in person, more like the inner need to confront it. It was during his long venture of hiking and climbing to the Amigara mountain. That was when he came across a fellow climber, a woman who not only seemed out of place, but Owaki could easily tell that she too was looking for the mountain. Her name was Yoshida.
Oh, so is their fate to be together or something?
Attractive, a bit shy, and who was also infected with the overwhelming desire to confront this mountain when seeing it on the news. A troubled couple, two destinies that had found themselves traveling the wilderness together and chasing one of nature's most fascinating discoveries. An adventurous mystery that may have a pleasant ending for Owaki.
I highly doubt it's a pleasant ending, as this is a horror, video. At least that's what I'm led to believe. Are you telling me this is not horror related?
As our couple were just moments away from reaching the mountain, that was when they could hear the sounds of other people nearby. A crowd who'd also had the curiosity of learning the secrets behind this unnatural discovery. But when Owaki and Yoshida had finally reached Amigara Mountain, right before them was a mystery that was far more powerful and mesmerizing than they had anticipated. It was true. Thousands of human-shaped holes that were found within the vault.
Oh! Okay, I was wondering what was going on. It looks like this is like the mountain cliff, and this is the sky, and all these people are like being abducted or something like that. That's what it looked like, but no, this is a wall. These are people-shaped holes in there. Okay. Oh, that's weird.
Exposed by the earthquake. Just by looking at it, kind of makes you wonder that all this time, being underground, how exactly were they created? Or better question, why were they kept hidden away from human civilization?
That's weird. Cool.
When the world was introduced to this discovery, teams of scientists, college researchers had wasted no time on unraveling the secrets of the holes. Using a fiberscope to measure the depth of the holes, it seemed like the human silhouettes were far deeper than 30 meters, leaving researchers...
What happened to the vault, though? Are there gonna be, like, people actually inside of these holes in the end or something?
...with the assumption that the holes must be curved within the mountain. But what was the most unsettling feature about these holes was the fact that there was no evidence that these silhouettes were created from the outside. That the only way they can be designed by human hands is if they were created from within the mountain itself. Of course, nobody could find an entrance of any kind, if there ever was one. But better yet, the silhouettes were ancient, and there was no technology that could give man the ability to create such wonders. And even though human science had tried defining the origins and nature of these holes...
What do you mean it was ancient... that humans couldn't do that? Pretty sure that they could do that. I don't get it.
There was an undeniable reality about this new discovery. A dwelling fear that nobody could prove that these silhouettes were created by the hands of man.
Oh, no one could prove it.
For some people, especially Yoshida, the magnificent view of the Amigara fault was of no importance. Because her reasons for being at the mountain was far greater than some mysterious wonder.
She's not interested in these silhouette things at all? What's wrong with her? She's just like, yeah, well, that's a normal day for me. What's she doing there then?
When Yoshida had seen the fault on the news, it was only a small glimpse, a mere second. When she'd seen it, her hole, meaning that one of these holes belonged to Yoshida.
What?
She swore that somewhere on this mountain is a hole that's her identical silhouette.
Oh, and maybe that's why this other... I don't know the names of these people, but maybe that's why the guy is there too, because his hole's there.
Of course, Owaki had found it ridiculous, a bit egotistical. How exactly could something that's probably 1,000 years old be based off of Yoshida? And even though Owaki was having a hard time believing Yoshida, suddenly, there was one guy who believed her when overhearing her bizarre claims. His name was Nakagaki, and he too had felt the same way when watching the news, that somewhere on this mountain was his identical hole. In fact, that's the reason why most of the people had traveled to the Amigara mountain.
Oh boy, oh boy. I was just thinking that everyone's there because of this reason, that they think they have a hole there for them. That's freaking weird.
Just to look for their holes. And just recently, Nakagaki had finally discovered his. And you can't deny that it's a perfect fit. You can obviously see the reluctance on Owaki's face. Maybe there was a bit of jealousy seeing how this Nakagaki was probably some joker who was just trying to...
So wait, so are the holes supposed to like suck you in or something? So you're supposed to stand there and get sucked in? That's what it seems like. It's friggin' weird.
To impress Yoshida. Or maybe he was a nut job who was looking for some attention when stripping himself down to his undergarments and performing a self-embarrassment stunt when stepping into the hole.
Forget bugs!
When Nakagaki's entire body had entered the human-shaped hole, his hole, it was like his entire body had perfectly settled itself into the hole before he began sliding into the vault.
He's going in it! He's going in it! I was freaking right in assuming that.
like something was pulling him from within the mountain, or like he was being consumed. And just as Nakagaki had went into the mountain, that's when Owaki and Yoshida had just witnessed a sudden horror. Nakagaki had just disappeared into the mountain.
Oh, that's freaking weird. That's kind of cool, but it's weird.
That day, the Enigma of the Amigara Fault had became a story that had turned its entire focus onto the man who had disappeared within one of the holes. When the rescue team was called in, they used a fiberscope to check the hole, 30 meters deep, and yet they couldn't find a single trace of Nakagaki.
Then you have to go further. You have to go further.
One of the members of the rescue team decided to enter the hole, someone who was about 5'2", he only made it about 5 meters before he was pulled out. The fact was, Nakagaki had disappeared into the mountain, and even though people claimed that it was a stunt gone wrong, for some reason, Owaki felt that there was something more to this strange occurrence.
Yeah, they're all probably supposed to do the exact same thing. That's what I assume is going to happen. That everyone who went there for the reason of the hole, of the holes that, you know, they have their own hole or whatever, they're going to end up doing the exact same thing.
It was an uneasy night for Owaki, where his moment of outdoor slumbering would be infected with the discomforting thoughts of Nakagaki. A claustrophobic nightmare
That's a freaking creepy image right there.
of someone who was still within the hole, hundreds of meters within the mountain, finding himself facing an uncomfortable horror when being unable to move. That Nakagaki's perfect silhouette was now being twisted, and yet, very slowly, there was something that was still pulling his body through the twisted frame.
Man, I do not like these faces. They're starting to creep me out. They're starting to creep me out. Why? We're not even halfway done yet.
Somewhere within the Amigara mountain was a foolish man who was now overwhelmed with a claustrophobic terror, spending his long and final moments screaming for somebody, anybody, to help him.
Oh, the sound effects! The sound effects!
The following day, the fact that there was still no sign of Nakagaki, that, my friends, was only the beginning of an unremitting horror.
Oh, more people are gonna start going in.
The man who walked into the hole had instantly made the news, but nobody had never expected that the following day, there would be more people who would follow the same footsteps.
What did I say?
Men and women who would strip themselves down to their undergarments and enter one of the holes after claiming that it was theirs. And much like Nakagaki, they too would disappear without a trace. But for Owaki and Yoshida, they were facing a much greater problem. You see, early in the morning before sunrise, that was when Yoshida would claim that she had finally discovered her hole.
So she's gonna go in it? She's gonna go in it, I assume. YOLO, I guess.
Even though people had begun disappearing when entering the holes, Owaki had still maintained his reluctance on believing that these ancient holes were built for specific people. Like Yoshida, for example. I mean, when Yoshida had shown him the hole, Owaki did admit that Yoshida and the silhouette were identical. But that doesn't mean that this hole was built for her.
Wait, I thought Owaki had a hole too that was for him, and that he knew of it. Didn't he? Or am I getting something mixed up?
There was just no way. It had to be a coincidence. And regardless how much effort Owaki tried bringing Yoshida back to her senses, the girl was literally convinced that the hole was calling to her, telling her, "Come to me." That even though she felt that this hole offered nothing but a painful and traumatizing death, for some reason, no matter how hard she tried fighting it, the compulsion was becoming too great. Yoshida knew that very soon, she was going into the hole. That she has to enter the hole.
Man, all this whole talk makes me want to make some jokes. I don't feel it's appropriate at the moment.
In a last effort to bring this madness to an end, Owaki had decided to fill Yoshida's hole with rocks, hopefully ease her compulsion by blocking her from entering the hole. Such a noble and unselfish effort, And even though our troubled Yoshida may have found himself within the arms
Friggin' leave the mountain then! Either go in the hole or leave the mountain. If it's calling to you that bad, and you don't want her to go in it, take her away from the mountain. Don't stay up there. I mean, it's stupid. Leave.
of Iwaki that night, a young man who had offered something that she had never experienced within her lonely and miserable life: companionship and true love. It's just too bad that Iwaki had underestimated the true horror of the Amigara fault and its incredible power.
She goes in it, I guess?
The second night, Iwaki had a dream, but not just any dream. It was like he was reliving a single moment in time, an ancient time.
Oh, how the holes were first created?
And even though this was a different time, the strangest thing about this dream was how familiar it was. Within this dream, Iwaki had just committed a heinous crime and was being punished for his vile actions. Iwaki didn't know what he did, but he knew that it was bad enough for him to receive the worst punishment for his crimes, more like a death sentence. When being sent to a specific location within the mountains, an area that was secluded from the world and human civilization, there was a cliff where its walls were lined with countless holes for the other criminals who were executed in the past. It was said that when somebody would commit such a horrible crime, that's when they would create these human-shaped holes. It didn't take long before Iwaki would be brought before his hole, just by gazing into the human silhouette.
So wait, what? He had a dream from like hundreds of years ago or something, and when people were punished, they'd go inside holes or something like that? Or the holes were created for them?
Iwaki knew that he was about to suffer greatly for what he did. A death that was so inhumane that even human civilization would later refrain themselves from using these holes again. When they left Iwaki near his hole, free from his restraints, it seemed like a careless act, an easy opportunity for Iwaki to make his escape. But for some reason, Iwaki didn't want to leave. Just by gazing into the abyss of this hole, it was like some unknown force had ensnared him. Like his future, his purpose in life, had centered itself to this hole. He knew what was inside.
Is he still in the dream? I'm confused. Is he still dreaming this?
And yet, there was a compulsion to submit and accept his fate. So he stepped in. The stoned walls were cold and smooth, a design that would force Iwaki's entire body into the darkened earth. It was when he began feeling a tug around his neck. Iwaki had felt the claustrophobic terror as his neck would stretch itself to the very point where his head should have been torn off.
Oh!
Even though it was just a dream, it felt like he was in that hole for months.
So the hole basically, it fits your body, and I guess, I don't know, maybe gravity or something pulls you into it, and as it's pulling you, the mold around your body starts stretching, so it starts like pulling your, your head off or something. That's freaking crazy! But it's still, I think this is the dream still, right?
Iwaki could even feel every painful minute. The pulling and unbearable pain as his entire body would be stretched out in several directions at once.
So it is that way, I was thinking.
The last thing Iwaki remembered before waking up was desperately screaming for help. But when Iwaki had awakened from his traumatizing slumber in the dead of night,
let me guess, she's not there.
he was about to find himself facing a true nightmare.
Yep.
When discovering that Yoshida was missing. Here's a fact, my friends. Life, it ain't fair. Doesn't really care about your destiny. A harsh lesson that Iwaki is going through right now when facing a horror.
Look, so she went inside of it. She went inside of it. What I say, if you don't want her going near it, friggin' leave the mountain. Go somewhere else. And if you're not willing to try to at least leave, then this is what's gonna happen.
Horrible reality. Standing before Yoshida's hole, in the pile of rocks that were taken out. It was a scene that had Iwaki begging, pleading for this to be somebody's sick idea of a joke. That maybe Yoshida had to step out for a moment. It must have been a couple hours, desperately searching the mountain, the tent, everywhere, and yet no Yoshida. Eventually, Owaki had finally came to the realization of what had happened to Yoshida. But
What do you mean? The friggin' rocks were gone. I mean, of course she moved them and got inside of it. You don't need to spend hours searching to come to that conclusion.
why? After these two lonely souls have found each other, a future where there is love, a purpose in life, and no more loneliness, why would she go into that hole?
Because she's driven to.
It must have been a coincidence when Owaki had discovered it when accidentally dropping his flashlight. Or
Oh,
maybe
there
it
we
was
go.
fate. At first, it looked like any other hole. But giving it a second glance, that was when Owaki had remembered it. It was the same hole from his dreams. You know something? The future.
Man, I got like chills going on. Yeah, I like this a lot.
When you see it for what it truly is, it can be a scary thing, not knowing what's around the corner. It's like looking into this hole, staring into the abyss, fearing the terrible consequences that await from within. But when Owaki had gazed into the ancient hole, that was when he began to realize something. For the first time, it felt like the world was cold. A very cold place. A world that offers nothing but sadness, pain, and horror. But looking into this hole, it had given Owaki something of a warm and blissful feeling. Maybe there is no.
Wait, what? I thought he just realized that the world was cold, but now it's warm. I don't know, the wording there kind of tripped me up a bit. Alright, so I'm editing right now, and I've gone back and listened to that to try to understand it, and now it makes sense. Basically, he realized that, you know, the world is cold, but, like, the hole makes him feel warm and fuzzy like that. I think that's what he's trying to say.
Nothing to fear with this hole. Maybe this whole time Owaki was
This whole time?
just scared. Scared to accept his
Sorry.
fate. That his dreams of having a family, a purpose, a life where he's truly happy would come to this very moment, standing right before this hole. Owaki's hole. And removing his clothing, preparing to make that courageous leap, Owaki knew that it was all going to be okay now.
Isn't this hole basically created to, you know, people who created the crimes way back or something like that? That's what I'm getting from it. Isn't that it?
Because Owaki is going to be very brave and accept his fate. I know that life can be quite complicated, and even though it's something that comes with its unexpected challenges, facing overwhelming obstacles and giving us the notion of a hopeless and miserable future, the fact is, we may not have the ability to choose our obstacles, but we will always have the ability to be the authors of our own story. And sometimes we may find ourselves facing a moment where our choices are narrowed down into two, whereas one would offer bliss and happiness, as with the other would only bring misery and grief. Or so that's the way we see it.
Oh, so is it over then?
This is what happens when someone is looking into one of the human-shaped silhouettes. For the first time within somebody's life, when gazing into one of these holes, the world becomes very cold, and would normally choose the option that offers warmth, purpose, and happiness when taking...
Oh no, so the hole does make you feel cold. Doesn't it? I don't know, I'm confused over that.
that step into the very hole that calls their name. And even though there's the mystical pull, there is still the ability to choose. It's just that when someone is looking into one of these holes, it can be very hard to make the right choice. These holes which were supposedly created during a barbaric time, and were meant for those who've committed the worst of crimes. It's most likely that they were not created through conventional methods, but through methods that are both unnatural and unearthly. But what if something went wrong? Something that was overlooked when these holes begin feeding upon those who are of the same blood,
I'm a little bit confused at the moment.
including the future descendants.
Oh, he was a future descendant. Okay, I got it.
Maybe this is the reason why the holes were buried and had spent centuries of being kept hidden away from the world and human civilization, until a natural disaster would unravel one of humanity's most darkest secrets.
Oh, okay. That actually cleared a lot of things up, that little blurb here at the end.
As to what happened to those who had disappeared, it would be 3 months later before Japan would uncover the horrible secrets behind the holes, when a hiker had discovered the other side of the fault. Unlike the other holes,
That's the friggin' the holes? Hey, look at this. This is her head. It had been stretched this far. Oh my goodness. So it was like, I was thinking it was gonna kind of do something like this, but not to this extent.
these holes were found to be thin and having no form. It was when someone had first glanced into one of these deformed holes that was when Japan was introduced to the nightmarish fate of the missing victims, and introduced to the horrible truth behind the enigma of the Amigara fault.
Yo, that friggin' ending though. Oh my goodness. Anyway, I hope you guys liked this video. Thank you to Chris Animac for recommending this to me. I actually really enjoyed this, but I'm not sure if you guys did. If you did, please give this a thumbs up and let me know. I would love to react to some more of these. It's freaking weird and creepy. And I don't know, I really enjoyed it. But I hope you guys did too. And if you did, make sure you give it a thumbs up. Possibly share with a friend. If you knew it, subscribe to the family. Also, make sure you guys go and subscribe to Horror Show Comics. That link's in the description. And I'll see you guys the next time. Boop!